The United States really does seem to be working against President Nayib Bukele of El Salvador. Ever since Joe Biden took office, the United States government has been very hostile and belligerent with the administration of Nayib Bukele and his political party, Nuevas Ideas. And I'd like to share probably some of my opinions of why this is happening. The United States has basically always treated Latin America as its backyard and that it basically owns Latin America and can control them. That's been America's history and legacy. And El Salvador is no exception. The United States has basically dominated over El Salvador, and El Salvador was a military dictatorship from basically 1885 until 1992. El Salvador, before Nayib Bukele, always had terrible leaders. And these terrible leaders were allies of the U.S. government. During the Cold War, the United States backed horrible military dictators in El Salvador, and during the Civil War in El Salvador from 1979 to 1992, the United States was a big supplier of military weapons to the Salvadoran military regime. The U.S. trained Salvadorian military soldiers, and it produced unspeakable violence. Thousands of Salvadorians were killed, and it created an immigration crisis in the 80s. And the U.S. didn't care about human rights back then in El Salvador. And when the Civil War ended in 1992, El Salvador was dominated by two terrible corrupt parties, Arena, which was a right-wing death squad organization originally, and the FMLN. They were the main communist guerrilla group fighting against the Salvadoran military during the Civil War. The right-wing Arena Party, as I mentioned, was founded in 1981 by a death squad leader named Roberto Diabacion. Arena ran El Salvador from 1989 until 2009, and they were very corrupt, and yet the U.S. government preferred them and liked them because they were friendly with the U.S., and in 2001, El Salvador ended up getting rid of their currency, the colon, and going to the U.S. dollar to be their new currency, and has been ever since 2001. And now with President Nayib Bukele, who came to office with the New Ideas Party, he has actually been going after the corruption in El Salvador. Bukele is very popular with his people. The Salvadorian people really like Nayib Bukele, and Salvadorians who live outside of El Salvador, including Salvadorian Americans, are big fans of Nayib Bukele. And the Biden administration in particular, but also many Republicans, have also opposed Nayib Bukele. And one of those things they don't like is El Salvador wanting to go to Bitcoin. And one of the reasons El Salvador is going to Bitcoin is because they want to have an alternative currency, given how the US dollar is in a mess with lots of economic inflation in the United States. And ever since the 2008 recession, using the US dollar has its risks. And I don't blame El Salvador for wanting to have another option for currency. Now, the U.S. doesn't like cryptocurrency because they just view it as a threat to the power of the U.S. dollar. The cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, it can't be controlled by anybody. And the U.S. government and banking institutions, they hate Bitcoin for that reason. The U.S. wants the U.S. dollar to be the dominant currency for the whole world. And in particular, El Salvador, who uses the U.S. dollar as their currency, the U.S. wants to have total economic control over El Salvador. And Bitcoin gives El Salvador some degree of economic independence from the U.S. And the U.S. doesn't like that. It's really ironic, though, that the U.S. is opposing Nayib Bukele because he's one of the only, how do I say, competent leaders of Central America. And under Nayib Bukele, murders and crime have been reduced by over 50% in El Salvador. El Salvador used to be one of the most violent countries in the world, with an extremely high murder rate ever since even the Civil War days. And they're infamous for the MS-13 gang. And under Nayib Bukele, murders have really gone down in El Salvador. The security situation has improved, and now illegal migration from El Salvador for the first time in their history has reduced. The U.S. ought to be thankful for that. But instead, they're giving Nayib Bukele a really hard time and criticizing basically everything he's doing. And when he's trying to fight corruption in his country, the two corrupt parties, corrupt politicians from previous governments, the U.S. doesn't like that at all. So the U.S. really isn't serious about fighting corruption in El Salvador because a lot of those corrupt people in Central America are allies of the U.S. So the United States has been undermining Nayib Bukele and criticizing him, and they basically want to see his government fail. But it's so self-defeating to do that, because if Nayib Bukele's government fails, then El Salvador would just go back to what it was, and migration from El Salvador would just continue to be a problem, and then you'll just see a bunch of Salvadoran migrants like before, trying to illegally enter the U.S., which isn't good for anybody. So it's so stupid and self-defeating for the U.S. to keep punishing Nayib Bukele and his party New Ideas, while at the same time the U.S. was helping horrible leaders in Honduras, for example, like Juan Orlando Hernandez and Pepe Lobo Sosa. And now the U.S. is, extraditing Juan Orlando Hernandez once he exits office and is no longer useful for the U.S. America's foreign policy in Latin America has never worked. It's always working with horrible leaders until they're no longer of use, and then you dispose of them. And that has never produced any stability in Latin America. I hope with Nayib Bukele, he does succeed. And thankfully, there are a lot of American citizens who are supportive of him, and there's a lot of more American investors, not just cryptocurrency, but other American business people and stuff who want to work with Nayib Bukele and help him. There are Americans who are able to see past the nonsense of the U.S. government. And El Salvador really does look like it's finally becoming a safe, normal country for the first time in their history, and that's really special for the Salvadorian people.